Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Daniel Gasser from Zurich, Switzerland. Daniel helps you get your beautiful emotions to the surface to make you a better and stronger man. Daniel has developed the 7 Steps to Your Superpower program that helps you become a loving partner, a caring dad, a loyal friend, a trustworthy leader. Daniel, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Hey, Peter, thank you so much for having me in your show. Glad to be here. So my story, I started my career as a man, as a needle junkie at the age of 17. And then I started drinking and I did that for over 30 years. And I was what is named as a functional drinker. So you wouldn't notice that I have an alcohol problem because I had my career, I had my businesses. Everything went well on the surface, but as we know, it's not the case. And I had to close down my well-going natural stone company, my first business, because I drank too much and because I smoked too much pot. And yeah, it's not, I mean, taking drugs and business don't really go together, in my opinion. But that didn't make me stop. On the contrary, I drank more, and I was around 40 years old. I had a huge midlife crisis. What have I done with my life? How did I end up here, etc., etc.? And that made me drink more and more and more. And like 5 years ago, I had a quite violent car accident from which I just walked away totally sound. And that made me click. That was the click that made me, okay, now you're almost 50 years old. Is this your life? Is this what you want to do? Is this going to be the rest of your life? And I said, no way. So, and it took me another 1.5 years to stop drinking, actually, with a nice method that, by the way, I have an online program for that too, which just deletes the alcohol out of your mindset, basically. So now I'm not drinking anymore. You can drink if we meet. I don't have a problem with that. I even have alcohol in my house for my guests. No issues. It's just not part of my life anymore. And then I started coaching men who have a similar problem, who are functional drinkers. And I noticed after 1 year or so that people who drink usually tend to look at alcohol as the solution to their problems. And they don't necessarily seek solution. And as drinking or too much sports or too much work or too much porn are just symptoms for the underlying problems, I figured, okay, why not then coaching men on their problems instead of just healing the symptoms? And I started to educate myself, started to reading a ton of books. I'm still reading like 4 books at the time about therapy, about client focus therapy, about modern therapy, etc., etc., etc. So to be able to help men specifically. That's my story. And now I ended up on LinkedIn like a half a year ago, which is, I think, a good platform to be. Yeah, that's the story.
I saw that most of your programs and also videos are also available in English. Are your clients based in Switzerland, or are you trying to deliver your method worldwide, or at least in an English-speaking world?
So as I actively started coaching during the lockdowns, I had no choice then to go online. And I have quite a technical IT background. I was a software engineer also. So I wasn't afraid to go online. I wasn't afraid of the technical aspect of all that. So the language online is English. So yeah, that's why I'm doing it in English. But I have Swiss clients also. I have German clients, also Italian clients, but then they have to speak English because my Italian is not that good.
Okay, so for me, as I mentioned in our previous conversations, that I'm really amazed how honest and open you are about your drinking problem, because most of our listeners would not understand, but Swiss society is very closed and withdrawn. Nobody has a problem on the surface, and it's basically a taboo to have such a problem, and you're just frank and open about it. Is that part of your program? Is that the first part, that you need to acknowledge the problem before you can solve it?
So that's actually a two-part question. I think you need to acknowledge any problem you have in order to be able to seek a solution for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not aware of having a problem or you deny it, you won't solve the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other part, being open and cheeky and straightforward, that's just me. That's the way I am. And I always thought it to be a flaw, actually, because of the environment I grew up in Switzerland, and very, as you say, we Swiss people are very reserved and very discreet. That's why a lot of prominent people, celebrities, come to live here, because they have peace. We don't chase them, we leave them in peace. Everybody leaves everybody in peace. So, but now I know it's not a flaw, it's a quality, to be cheeky and bold and straightforward, especially online. So yeah, you have to acknowledge the problem, but it's not part of the program.
Mm-hmm. So you were never afraid. So sorry for I'm pushing that, because I spent many years in Switzerland, and I'm pushing that because I had people drinking a lot, also directors in our companies, as you call it, the functional drinkers. So they would do it daily, a beer after the job is done, and so on. And then they start in the morning, and they try to push through the day with another drink or so. But they would never acknowledge or start or go to treatment or do anything about it, because they were so afraid of the stigma. What would the people say if they would start a treatment? Of course, that was about a decade ago, and that the most of the treatment then available was just through the medical system.
Yes.
And they were really afraid of the treatment there. How did you go at? I'm really amazed. You said that you acknowledged the problem, and then you needed another year and a half before you stopped drinking. How did you discover your method? What led to this discovery?
So first, I would like to say that the stigma is not a Swiss problem. It's especially in the Western world a big problem, because for society, drinking alcohol is something completely normal. Everybody does it. 90% of all grown-ups drink alcohol on a regular basis. And I'd even go a step further and say 90% of all grown-ups drink alcohol too much, too often. Period. That's my statement. But so if a whole society states that drinking alcohol is a normal thing, and then suddenly in quotes, you have a problem with it, then you show society that it's not that easy as everybody states. And then you're kind of excluded with your problem, because if I say openly, I'm a functional drinker, I have a problem with alcohol, then I show indirectly the mirror to all the other people that, hey, perhaps we all have a problem with that, and that nobody wants to see. So as soon you're not functioning anymore, you have this label of an alcoholic, which is completely wrong, by the way, because an alcoholic, medically speaking, is something different than a functional drinker. And then you're alone with your problem. But that's not Swiss typic, that's, I think, worldwide. Now, for your question, I read a lot of books, and then I stumbled across a book from Alan Carr, who wrote about how to stop smoking. And he wrote also about how to stop drinking. And what he does, or how the system works, is actually to change a habit. And there again, we are at the difference between a functional drinker and an alcoholic. To change a habit successfully, you have to sell it different. The habit of sitting on a couch, eating chips and watching Netflix is easy because you're lazy, there is nothing to do, there's no effort, you don't have to step out of your comfort zone, etc., etc. But if I successfully sell you the couch and the potato chips and the Netflix as something bad, then you will change that habit. So if I can change my mindset versus alcohol, how do I think about alcohol? What it does actually to me and my system, and I will give you some examples, then slowly but surely you change the system. And why it took me 1.5 years is because I did the usual. I went to some counseling and they asked me questions like, how much do you drink per week? How about cutting down? How about going to AA meetings? And I was like, oh my God, really? So I have to go to meetings for the rest of my life every goddamn week? That can't be a solution. This is just another, you just put the problem to another space, but you don't solve the problem. Because talking about being a drinker for the rest of my life, I don't know, that's not freedom for me. So it took me a while to get to the right tools, basically. So let me give you an example of how that works. We say, for example, we drink a glass of wine or something like that to cope with stress. But it's just a lie. That's not true. We think that it relaxes us and calms us down. But actually, the contrary is the case. What alcohol does to your nervous system is it pushes it up because it's a poison. So the body has to stand up, get alert, and get your nervous system on a high alert basis. We don't notice that because we are used to it. So to compare it with, let's say you have a fire in your home. And all you do is turn off the alarm, call the firefighters and say, fire is under control. No, you just turned off the alarm. And instead of looking at why am I stressed every day of my life, I drink a glass of wine. So you start asking yourself questions. Okay, why am I stressed? Wouldn't it be better to get rid of the stress and then alcohol becomes obsolete? Or another example is that we think we're social when we drink. We think we have a lot of fun when we go out and have alcohol with our friends. But if you observe closely, and I did all these observations, so I went to a bar and had a look around who had a lot of fun and who hadn't. And it turned out that the people who had fun, they also had fun without alcohol because they were friends and they had fun together. And the people who needed alcohol to have fun, after a few hours, they were not so funny anymore. So you see, and with all this kind of changing the way how you look at it, with time, you just say, well, wow, what am I doing here? But, and now the big but comes. This is the main difference between a functional drinker and an effective alcoholic. An alcoholic, if he stops drinking, he starts trembling, he starts having physical and health problem, but these are not the people that I can help. And a functional drinker, physically, he is not really addicted to alcohol. He can stop whenever he wants, physically speaking. He will not have any withdrawal pains. He will maybe have 2-3 nights where he doesn't sleep that well. That's it. And that happened to me, and I drank up to 10 liters of beer a day. With 60 kilograms of body weight, that's quite a lot of beer, right? And I stopped it from one day to the other, and I had no withdrawal pain whatsoever. So yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So if I understand correctly, what you're doing, but you're basically coaching people how to develop a new mechanism or a new attitude towards alcohol and stress. You're not into the therapy, if I understood correctly.
Now, what I do in therapy is to look at why you started drinking in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And my approach is rather than, okay, let's stop poisoning ourselves first and then have a look at your problem.
Okay,
There
so
are other approaches who say, okay, continue drinking, which is fine, continue drinking. And while we solve your problem, you can still drink, which is another approach, but both are fine.
if I understand correctly, you start with a detox.
Yes, I think first detox, then have a look at the problem.
Okay, and it's probably much easier to look at your problem sober than drunk.
Yeah, of course, because alcohol closes our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to solve your problem, you have to have an open mind to a new point of view. I mean, coaching or therapy, I prefer to call it a coaching, is if you're not open-minded, you won't be successful in a coaching. You can pay whatever you want to a coach, you won't succeed. Because as a coach, I will ask you a ton of questions, and then I will listen to your answers. And that's all I do as a coach, basically, as a good coach. There are other coaches, but a good coach, that's all he does. And if you're not open-minded to dig a little bit inside of you to get these answers out, the best Tony Robbins could not help you. Right?
Yeah. How much of the recovery would you attribute to motivation and how much to the discipline?
No discipline. Discipline doesn't work. Discipline doesn't work. Discipline is a very time-limited effect. If you don't have a valid reason to change something, it won't last, especially not with alcohol. Look at the New Year's resolutions where you say, okay, I start running, I start doing exercise, I start having more sex or less sex or whatever. It lasts until February and then it's gone. Why? Yeah. Because you know you don't have a valid reason to do the things. Mm-hmm. So no discipline.
So how long do you think it takes for new pattern to be established in people? Because probably the pattern before was we are under stress, let's have some alcohol to distress, and you said this does not work. How long does usually take your clients to establish a new pattern?
So this has been well studied and well proven. I think it's between 3 and 6 weeks. But that's for any habit, basically. That's not in my problem. That's just how we human beings work. So if you do something daily for 21 days, every day, chances are that you have already established a new habit or a new pattern. The longer you do it, the better it is. But again, if you have what it's called intrinsic motivation, you won't succeed. The reason, the drive why you do something, it's like in business. Your audience are business people, right? Mm-hmm. If you do a business just for money, I'd say you won't be very successful. But if your business drives you because you want to achieve something, you want to solve a problem of people, you want to change the world a little bit, you want to achieve something, chances are much bigger that you stand up every morning and you do your stuff. But if it's just to be able to say that you have a business or to brag, I'm a businessman, that's not an intrinsic motivation. And the same goes with every drug or with every bad habit. If you don't have an intrinsic motivation of why you want to do something, you won't succeed. Never. And especially with alcohol.
Mm-hmm. what it takes for people to change so that they don't go back to their old ways. What do you think? You explained the part is intrinsic motivation, but we know that sometimes something bad happens and then people go and get drunk again. How can how can you, let's say, clear the old pattern of solving problems or big problems with alcohol?
You need a clear vision.
Mm-hmm.
You need a goal. You need a clear vision of what you want to do, where you want to go, and why alcohol is hindering you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Another question: your clients are mainly male, or you also have female clients?
So mainly they are men, but that's more because you have to choose an audience,
Mm-hmm.
especially online. You cannot talk to everybody. There is this coaching saying that if you want to help everybody, you end up ending nobody.
Okay, so it's basically your focus. It's not that your method is not applicable to female audience.
Absolutely. We're all human beings. We all work the same thing. We all have the same problems, the same bad habits. And some, I think at the moment, is two of my clients are female at the moment. So
okay,
I don't say no. If a female comes to me and say, hey, I want to be coached by you, I say, okay, let's have a look at it. If we're a good fit, yeah, sure. But as a man, it's easier to talk to a man about his problems, especially male problems.
Mm-hmm. You have also developed the 7-step to your superpower program. Can you explain a bit more about that program?
That's actually the thing, the program to get your clear vision, to get your goal, to find out, why am I on this planet? Am I here to drink and to pay my bills? Nope. So this is very specific for men, because I don't know, if you were a little boy back then, you had dreams. And my approach is that one of these dreams you had as a little boy, at least one of them, was meaningful. We don't have dreams just like that. It's not like a movie. We have dreams for a reason. And as a child, we're not, let's say we're open to input from the universe. Let's call it like that. As a grown-up, we have our values, we have our theories, we have our fears, we have our blind spots, etc., etc., etc. But as a child, we don't have this. So we have dreams. And the first step is know your dream, is to get back there and have a look. What was the dream? What would you do now if you were a boy? And usually you find that out within a few sessions. And I see that as at that little smile in their faces. You know, that little Buddha smile, we call it.
Yeah.
And you know, we got something there. And then from there, finding out, is it even achievable right now? Or do we have to take other measures in order to make place or to get rid of noises or problems to get this goal into March, get this dream into March? And what we then do, we get inspired, we solve the issues, why you're not there yet, why is it still a dream, or why that dream has been buried. Very often it's our parents that say, you cannot do that. Stop dreaming, get a job, and shut up, right?
Yes.
So this is the first and second step. And then we establish your powers again, because we are all divine beings. We all have tremendous creative and other powers, which have been, sadly said, put down by society, or by, let's say, like the people who have a lot of power. They don't want you and me to be powerful, because then we don't need them anymore, right? And we don't give them our money anymore. So we need to wake up again. And then we set goals. step by step, and then go. So this is, in short, the seven-step program. But I will compress it a little bit into a 3-step program, because if you hear 7 steps, you say, "Oh, that sounds like work," right? But
No, I was amused because when I read all the 7 steps that you've published, I was just amazed, because it's sounds like a perfect program for someone that is just diving into midlife crisis.
yeah.
I think it's the perfect program for that. You're also talking a lot about men. You explained that you can also work with female. I would like to know your take on somehow controversial topic of Andrew Tate, the guy who's trying to get masculine power back on charts, or popular, or getting it back and be popular. What do you think of him?
I like his mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I like his cheekiness, his boldness, but he's not talking to me.
Yeah, of course.
Because
You're already established person.
No, but his language is not. It's not. I don't like his language. He's kind of vulgar.
Okay.
But I like the message. I very much like his message. But what I don't like is also the spectacle he's doing on TikTok and all that. When I see him say, "Okay, man, I see you. It's okay. Let's get down to the point and stop bragging around with your cigars and your money. It's okay.
So
I have money too. It's cool."
So you would agree that there needs to be some empowering of men, but it can be on completely different, how to say, communication to establish that back.
No, not necessarily. I think, we need to take care of men again. Because we're not free anymore. We cannot be men anymore. But any approach that helps that purpose is good. His approach is different than mine. I go with the emotions. I say, if a man these days can live his emotion with an open heart, can understand his emotions again, and can deal with them like a grown-up, then he becomes a real man. And what Andrew does is that he says, listen, become a man again. We're men. We have muscles. We have balls. Why do we hide them? You see, the message is similar, but the approach is completely different. Well, I don't judge him. I like the guy. I like his approach too. It may speak to a lot of men, but I guess more younger men. My audience is, let's say, between 40 and 60.
Okay. So I would say like after the midlife crisis.
Yeah, no, not necessarily, because it's like, let's say 35 to 40, you start asking yourself questions. Why am I here? What am I doing with my life? Do I have the right partner? Do I have the right job? Why is money so important? Is it really important? Etc. Etc. That's why. And a 20-year-old, you give him a nice car, he's happy. It's a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was like that, so
me too.
Prototype. So it's not. So how do you approach your clients? Do you have also? I saw a couple of your video messages. Are your sessions more individual, or do you prepare video lectures for your clients?
No lectures, one-to-one sessions.
Okay.
What I do usually is I offer a 2-hour power coaching session for free, where basically I coach the hell out of you first. So you're like, oh, fuck, okay, wow. And then if you won't work with me, we start working. What happens a lot of time in these 2-hour sessions is that the brothers start crying. Because usually people who are seeking a solution or who are chatting with a coach or telling me that my posts are inspiring or whatever, they are close to an explosion, or they are close to lose their job, lose their wives, they're close to a catastrophe. So it usually doesn't take much to get that shell away and to say, oh, look who's there, the little boy. Why don't you come out and cry a little? And then it's liberating. As you know, crying is liberating, especially for us men. We don't cry. We're not allowed to cry. We have to be stoic and strong and Terminator and whatnot. So for a lot of men, they start crying and then they're liberated and then they start talking and they start telling their stories, telling their problems, and they already get at least a clearer view on their lives within these 2 hours, at least, if not already some solutions.
Okay, let me just ask you this thing. We talked about a lot of alcohol-related problems in the beginning, but your courses and your teachings are also meant for the people that do not have imminent alcohol problem, and
yes, of course,
they just want to advance in life.
Yeah, because as I said in the beginning, alcohol is just a symptom. A lot of men consume too much porn, or are masturbating way too often, or change partners way too often, etc., 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 or too much sports. That exists, yeah. They go to the gym at noon, they go to the gym in the evening, every day, and then is this really, first of all, it's nothing to do with being healthy anymore, but it's more of a flight. You know, you go away from something. You don't want to see something. You don't want to be home. You don't want to talk to your wife. You don't want to do your work. You know, and these are all symptoms to hide something, to not have to look at it. So that's why I changed my coaching from just coach drinking men to men in general who want to change something in their lives.
Would you say that that because of the society, how it's developed, how we are raised, and all the medium influence, what percentage of men do you think would need a coach, or the coach would be beneficial for them?
You ask me that as a human being, as a coach, or as a businessman?
As a businessman, because I do believe that as a businessman, that everyone would need a coach, or at least
exactly.
I profited from coaching a lot.
Of course, every man needs a coach. No, just kidding. I guess if you see that you have a problem somewhere in life and you're clear enough to admit that you can't solve that on your own, then it's time to seek help. Then it's time to go out and talk to someone, and not your brother, not your friend, someone professional and someone with a distance. Because as your coach, I will never be your friend. I'm your coach. You hire me, you pay me money, and I help you get your solution, which is already inside of you. I just help you get these solutions out. That's all what a coach does. So if these two things, having a problem, admitting not being able to solve it on your own, then you should really reach out to someone, not necessarily me. There are many good coaches out there and many bad coaches out there too, but it's like in any industry, right? But for us men, and I think this is society part, it's difficult to admit that we need help. It's difficult to seek for solution outside, because we think as a man, I have to solve my problems on my own. If I can't, I'm not a real man, which is, of course, stupid. But I was the same too. I thought, okay, then what my wife will think of me? Will she still feel safe with me? Will I still appear as a good man, as an attentive lover, as a protective man. And I can say a grown-up woman, and I say that on purpose because not every woman is grown up and is a queen. They have their problems too. She will appreciate that, because here comes a little secret. Women don't fall in love with us because of our cars or of our muscles or of our stoicism. No, they fall in love with us because of our heart.
Mm-hmm.
They see the little boy inside of us, which wants to come out to play, to cry, to laugh, to have fun, to be attentive, to be loving and kind. Because no grown-up woman seeks a man who is not loving and kind. And to become a man who is loving and kind, you need to deal with your emotions. You cannot just bury them deep down inside. I mean, you can, but I say you're much happier if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So is there anything else you would like our listeners to take from this interview? Any quick tips or any secrets of the trade you can share with us?
Quick tips. If you have a wife as a man, ask her if it's true what I'm saying. Ask her with what part or trait she fell in love. Truly. Number one. Number two, if you think you drink a little bit too often or too much, stop it for 1 week or even for 3 days. And if you have, frankly, for yourself, just don't communicate with anybody, just for yourself. If during these 3 days you have a problem, you think, for example, oh, why not having a drink? Oh, no, I said I don't. Then you should call me, because then you already have a problem. Or any other person who can help you with this. And the third thing is, there is nothing bad in showing emotions as a man. On the contrary, when I went to a business meeting before, I had to have a drink, of course, to relax, to not be stressed, to be smooth and cool. And then I went to these meetings and I had to talk a lot to make myself hear, to make myself heard. Nowadays, because I have my emotions at the surface, because I know my emotions, because I can handle them, I just walk into the room and sit down. And people are watching me and people are waiting for me to say something. Huge difference. And I see it in almost every aspect of life, of social life. When a man knows himself, because he knows his emotions, then he becomes the leader, the real man that people are watching, that people are listening to, that people are coming to. The more you have to talk, the more you have to appear, the less you are. And for us men, I think my approach is take your emotions out, have a look at them, learn how to handle them, and then you become the real deal.
Thank you very much for all these insights. I will put links to where people can reach you in the description below. And thank you again for being my guest tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.